It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? Coming off a great sports weekend, we do. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton in upstate New York at my cottage in the northern Adirondacks near the Canadian border, along with my co-host, the venerable John Riley. He is back in studio in San Diego. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Stores, 9 locations to serve you across San Diego. Build it, fix it. We guarantee you will enjoy it with DIXIELINE Lumber. And by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido, we will all need help with our eyes somewhere down road. But right now, DIXIELINE and North County Eye Center are offering you free vision test. Call North County Eye Center to set up an appointment to see how your eyes are. Make sure you mention Hacksaw in his podcast sent you. John Riley, good afternoon. Great to have you with us. We tried our Thursday podcast up on the Lake Superior area. We got through it. We're going to try this from my cottage in the northern Adirondacks. We hope we can get through a Monday bonus podcast because, pal, we got a lot of topics on the table. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, I've got all these baseball topics, NFL, NBA, NHL, soccer. You even have drag racing in Hacksaw's Headlines.
So we're going to try to run through as many topics as we can. We hope our connectivity holds up. This is the first time we've tried this. Hell, if we could do our podcast from San Diego to Oregon to Ireland, we should be able to do this, but we're going to try our best. Couple of reminders. X marks the spot. If you are involved with Twitter, I invite you to join my team. I invite you to follow me at Hacksaw1090 at Hacksaw1090. Love to have you part of my Twitter All-Star team. Also want you to be part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Go to my website. That's the address right across the top, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. There's a big orange box right on the homepage. Fill out that box. You'll get on our email list all the different things that we're going to offer. And John, when we're done with our Monday bonus podcast, we hope to be able to bring people on board, Fans Forum, just briefly explain how all the people on our live stream can take part at the end of the Monday bonus podcast.
Yeah, so if you've got a comment or question for Lee, just drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, on X, or on YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Ready? Start. Go. Let's talk baseball.
Talking baseball, man. The Padres, they're looking good right now, even though they lost yesterday. What do you think out there, Lee?
John, let me come up with a word to describe, I think, what we've experienced in the last 10 days, maybe the last 2 weeks, and the word is resiliency. The Padres come off winning 2 of 3 at Fenway Park, 9-2, 11-1 victories. By the time they got done, Red Sox fans were booing the Bo Sox off the field at Fenway Park. We had the 9-run inning in one game. Machado had 2 bombs in the second one. Matt Waldron's knuckleball was pretty impressive, although they lost on Sunday. I thought it was fascinating that Waldron threw a knuckleball with the first pitch in honor of the late Red Sox popular knuckleball pitcher, Tim Wakefield, who lost his life to cancer. That was really cool. I thought it was really cool that Don Orsillo, who spent 16 years broadcasting Red Sox baseball, was honored by the fans who turned towards the television booth and clapped for him. So the Padres on the stretch won 9 of 10 and then got knocked out by the Red Sox on Sunday, off day Monday. Now they go to Texas. I think the most amazing thing to me as we talk about Padre baseball right now, Luis Arraez is having a spectacular all-star type season. Top hitter in Major League Baseball. Most amazing aspect to that, the Miami Marlins are paying almost his full salary. That is absolutely amazing. On top of that, Profar is having a career season. Got to be in the all-star game. He's playing for $1.5 million plus incentives. And Waldron, the 5th starter in the rotation, has had a lot of really good starts, 8 and 9 quality starts in a row that kind of kept the Padres within sight of the first place Dodgers. Padres are showing, I just think, unbelievable resiliency. That's my Sesame Street word of the day, brought to you by resiliency. John, reaction?
Well, I think you can make a case that Jackson Merrill maybe should be in the All-Star game too. I mean, there aren't very many players in center field that are hitting as well as him. But you got to love this. But, we're missing 4 stars. There's no Tatis, no Bogarts, no Musgrove, no Darvish, and yet they're winning. I mean, how do you explain this, Lee?
Well, right now they're hot. Now, is it they're going against substandard pitching? Yeah, that's probably part of the equation. But this is a piece of the schedule where I thought they could really put a run together. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I thought they had the ability to get on a 10-game winning streak, and they screwed it up on the road and screwed it up against bad teams. And then they go on the road and they face a Bo Sox team that won 10 of 13, and they conduct batting practice against them. So that was really, really impressive. They just need to keep trucking this, because once they come through this next homestand, John, that schedule gets really tough, because they go back out on the road and they play first place Cleveland. They face the second place Orioles, who are playing really good ball, and then they get the Dodgers when they come back here. So they really need to try to close the gap against the Dodgers in the next 10 days. So that's the storyline. The word that I'm using today, resiliency, as it relates to the Padres. Next topic on the table involves the other teams in Southern California.
Well, I have another Padre question for you, Lee. Apparently, there was an article written in the local newspapers in Boston about Don Orsillo and his homecoming to Boston. And he has fond memories of Red Sox fans. And, he grew up there, went to school there. But he said that, the loyalty has to go 2 ways. And the team was not loyal to him. They fired him. So he's sort of arm's length with Red Sox ownership and management. What's your take on that?
At arm's length with the people that made the decision. But that was a very unpopular decision for Red Sox fans. They were really unhappy with what the organization did. At that point, the Bo Sox had kind of hit a down skid, and they took it out on the announcing crew. How stupid is that? But it all worked out well. Donnie's become an icon, might be as popular, if not the most popular Padre TV broadcaster, linked with Mud Grant. And you add into that, Boston fans haven't forgot what a valuable guy he was to them, even if management at that point in time, for some reason, decided to make a change as the team went sour. So, and the fact that the fans turned around and gave him a thumbs up, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, all good. I mean, I think it's just an interesting side story on the whole thing, but loving the Padres. Well, yeah, let's go take a look at the Dodgers and Angels. There's got a lot going on with these 2 teams as well, Lee.
Yeah, if I'm looking for words as it relates to the Dodgers, let me use the word holding on. Holding on till their pitchers get healthy, or holding on till Andrew Friedman turns around and makes a trade. Is there going to be a trade for another bat like Luis Robert of the White Sox? Is there going to be a trade for a shortstop because they're not going to have Mookie Betts back for a while? Or is there going to be a trade for an arm because they've had these setbacks, obviously? Kershaw shut down again. The setback with Walker Buehler, the fact that Dustin May is still a ways away, and they still seem to be a little bit shaky, a little bit wafer thin as it relates to the bullpen. Now, they got chips to trade. If Andrew Friedman can pull the trigger on the right deal, he could trade outfielder James Outman, or he could trade shortstop Gavin Lux. He's got a really good catcher that's had a bounce-back season at Double-A, Diego Cartaya. So there are guys for the Dodgers to do. My word of the day, Dodgers holding on until they get healthy arms back, or holding on until Andrew Friedman executes a trade. The Angels situation. Could you see this coming? I didn't see this coming. I'm sure Angel fan didn't see this coming. Halo, 6-game win streak, playing much better baseball. Now we see if the Angels take the next step forward, because coming back off the disabled list shortly will be Anthony Rendon, has started taking batting practice. And Mike Trout, this past weekend for the first time, confirms he is pain-free post-knee surgery with the meniscus, and it looks as if he's going to start running this week, and he's kind of pushing his target date up maybe to August 1st. So those are my Dodger and my Angel headlines. And John Riley says,
did you see the replay of the ball boys saving Shohei Ohtani from getting hit? I mean, that was pretty cool. But, when you look at the Dodgers, I mean, who is their starting rotation right now? You get down to starters 4 and 5. I'm not sure if I recognize the names.
And all of a sudden, James Paxton, who at one point was 5-0, 7-1, can't get guys out. I mean, he got smoked over the weekend. And so the Dodgers right now are kind of running out of arms. Gavin Stone right now is become kind of the frontline guy on the staff. I don't really know where Bobby Miller is at this point, because a couple of innings he's pitched after coming off this long stay on the disabled list, he got banged around and he wasn't throwing a lot of strikes, etc. So the Dodgers right now are just, I just think that they're running short. So the question is, will Andrew Friedman pull the trigger on a deal well before the deadline, or do they just wait to hope that they can get Kershaw back and Buehler back? But those two guys have now both had setbacks, and so their stay on the DL is probably going to be extended. And your thoughts on the Halos? Could you imagine? Did you ever imagine 6 wins in a row anytime this season with that team?
No.
Ron Washington's got these guys believing in themselves, and the kids, Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe, are really kind of carrying this team.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's nice to see them have some success. Now, you say Mike Trout is pain-free. Do you think that he might be on the trade block in July?
Well, that rumor had surfaced that his name had been possibly discussed. I don't know whether it was the Angels making the call or whether the Giants was the name that I heard, whether the Giants made the call. But again, the trade deadline does not come up till July 31st. He has to prove now he can go through batting practice with no setbacks. Then he has to prove he can get on the bases and run with no setbacks, and has to prove that he can pound it in center field, unless they're going to make him a designated hitter, with no physical setbacks there. So there's still things in the rehab process that have to take place. But the fact he's pain-free and was hoping maybe to start running real quickly sometime after July 4th, with a target date now of August 1st, which rings and chimes in with the baseball trading deadline.
Yeah, you got to love that. I mean, just seeing the Angels being competitive. So, the All-Star game is in what, like a week and a half, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody news about Ohtani? Is he going to do the home run derby?
At this point, I don't think the Dodgers want him to do the Derby. But at this point, I also tend to think that he and his people are saying, we'd like to do it. They've re-rigged, reworked, rechanged the home run derby deliveries, that the guys are going to only have a max number of 40 pitches. The guys are going to be able to step out of the box, take a breath, because they were concerned, the players have been the last 2 years, that so many pitches are being thrown and these guys are swinging at full force that they're going to wear themselves out. They could have an oblique injury. They could do something to a rib cage for an exhibition. So what baseball did over the weekend was kind of hit the reset button a little bit, just to change what the batting practice pitches would look like, and they're going to limit how much time they're in the box, and they'll limit how many swings they're going to get.
I mean, to me, the home run derby is better than the All-Star game itself. What do you think?
Well, I like it, and I experienced it when the All-Star game came to San Diego. I sat down in left field seats right on the foul line. I was watching, at that point, Giancarlo Stanton of the Miami Marlins hit home run after home run after home run. I said, this is unbelievable what power this guy has. It's unbelievable. This guy could take as many fierce force swings and not get fatigued, not get worn out. But players are concerned just about that factor of home run derby, as neon light an issue as it is. It's really kind of a cool event, but you don't want to get guys hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So good time. It's July. It's heating up, and this is a great time for baseball.
Baseball Notebook, MLB, got some things here to talk about real briefly. This is not good for Philadelphia. Philadelphia's best team in Major League Baseball, John. I mean, red hot, and now they're hurt. Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber go down in the same game, and both are on the disabled list right now. One with a groin, Harper, the other, Schwarber, their leadoff home run hitter, with a hamstring. So that's not good. Not good in San Francisco. The ownership has gone public and it's kind of come out from behind the doors and has used the phrase, we're going to never do this again, ever. He's talking about signing free agents late, and he's making direct comments about the whole Blake Snell situation, who's yet to get them a win. Snell, of course, got signed late at the end of spring training, got hurt really early, ERA of around 10, is still on the disabled list. Now he's thrown 2 rehab assignments. They think he'll be back, but what kind of Blake Snell are they going to get back? Because he sure doesn't look like he was the guy who had been in San Diego. In fact, the Giants have got 7 guys on the disabled list. They've got a whole bunch of starters still on the DL, and ownership has gone public. Never again will they sign a free agent this late. It's a big issue that's really led to kind of a substandard Giants season. And in Washington, when we get to Tuesday, I just want you to look at the Washington Nationals box score. His name is James Woods. He will make his debut Tuesday for the Washington Nationals. Who's he? He was one of the guys, along with Mackenzie Gore and C.J. Abrams, who was dealt from the Padres to the Washington Nationals in the ill-fated Juan Soto trade that never worked out for the Friars. James Woods just recalled over the weekend, reported today, will be in the lineup tomorrow, hitting .346 at AAA Syracuse. He's the next ex-Padre prospect that's going to make his debut in Major League Baseball. So, John, your reaction to Philly, can they overcome this? Your reaction to the Giants ownership saying, we're never going to do this again?
Well, first of all, it's amazing how many injuries are going on all throughout Major League Baseball. Bryce Harper, he's got the most votes in the All-Star game. He's probably not going to be there, or maybe he'll just be there in spirit. The whole Blake Snell thing, it's like a slow train crash that you could see coming. We all knew he got off to slow starts. He signed late, came out of the box late, and now he's having his typical slow start and an injury. I mean, it's got to be the most frustrating thing for Giants fans right now because the dude is just not doing anything, and he's making $31 million this year.
Well, they signed him to a 2-year deal. He could opt out after the first year, but as ratty a season as he's had, he'll probably opt in and stay, and the Giants will be on the hook for another $31 million, and then we'll see what kind of season he has for next year. But this year, obviously, has just been a massive disappointment, and Blake Snell's lousy starts are part of Blake Snell's DNA. The injuries, that's a side situation, but it goes to show how you really need the ramp up, the build-up time for baseball spring training. So that being said, we just put topics on the table for fans forum, people to get involved. Padres, do you agree with me? The word we're looking for right now is resiliency. Anybody out there got an assessment of where the Dodgers are, hanging on for dear life? And can you believe what you see, what's going on with the Angels? So those are all things baseball. Next topic on the table, John, here we go. Hoops.
Hoops, yeah. Lakers, Clippers. Now they're trying to figure out which free agents to sign.
Well, the free agent window has opened. The NBA draft was last week. Let me run through good news, bad news, and the wheeling and dealing in the last 24 hours in the NBA has just been unbelievable. Item 1, LeBron James opted out of his contract. Item 2, he will be offered a 3-year, $162 million extension. Item 3, LeBron has indicated he was willing to take a discount on the extension to stay there if they got the right player. Item 4, they drafted his son, Bronny James, which has brought a lot of different reaction, but he's on the roster and he's going to sign a contract. Live with it, LA fans. Now, here's the next part of the story that has really taken the Lakers off track. They had hoped to be able to make a deal to get a significant three-point shooter, and the guy they wanted was DeJounte Murray of Atlanta. They refused to give up 2 number 1 picks and players in the trade, and instead Atlanta traded DeJounte Murray to the New Orleans Pelicans. Lakers shut out there. Item 2, LeBron talked to Klay Thompson, leaving Golden State. Instead, Golden State traded Klay Thompson at this hour. It looks as if it's a 3-way deal. Klay Thompson goes to Dallas. Josh Green goes from Dallas to Charlotte with draft picks. And the Warriors somehow are going to pick up draft picks and salary cap relief. And Klay Thompson's three-point shooting will be in a Dallas uniform, not a Laker uniform. So everything that LeBron and his agent had worked through Rob Pelinka and hope would work out, none of it's really worked out. And then the complicated, and this is really strange, D'Angelo Russell opted into his contract to stay. Everybody around the league was of the opinion he was going to opt out, go back on the free agent market. Now, he had a great season shooting threes last year, and then he totally disappeared, went into a funk in the playoffs. So this is a massive surprise as it relates to the Lakers that now they're, quote, stuck with D'Angelo Russell's contract. Now, it might well be that Russell will find his way under J.J. Redick, the new head coach. A couple of other guys also opted in to stay in Los Angeles with the new coach, who's gotten pretty good reviews in terms of J.J. Redick's conversations. So, John, there's a grandiose plan headlined by the word discount Now it's probably been erased, headlined by the word disappointment, because the Lakers failed to get any of the guys, quote, they were looking to add around LeBron James. John Riley, you're out in left field with an opinion. Thoughts?
Well, Klay Thompson was rumored to go to the Lakers for a long time. People were speculating it. I mean, wasn't his dad was Michael Thompson, right? I mean, isn't he still one of the announcers for the Lakers?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
But the problem, the thing was, he refused to take a massive pay cut, and the Lakers could only give him $12 million per year. And instead, he didn't want to go to the Lakers at the last minute. Golden State worked out the sign and trade that puts him in a Dallas Maverick uniform. To me, this is just a big setback, because now we have a new coach with the same set of roster players that didn't perform last year, and the guys they wanted to go after, notably DeJounte Murray, Klay Thompson, are going to be wearing somebody else's colors, not purple and gold. I think it's a big setback to the Lakers.
It is. And I think, the Lakers needed shooters. Klay would have been terrific there. So now, let's say LeBron takes a $20 million pay cut, which is insane to talk about such numbers. And they added another guy. That could be kind of a storybook year if they get the right puzzle pieces. And then you got, dad and son onto an NBA championship. I think that's the storybook ending they're looking for.
Is that you making that statement with your heart rather than using your head? I don't know who's out there that they could go get. And if they refuse to give up 2 number 1 picks for a star like DeJounte Murray, or they can turn around and give up 2 number 1 picks now for a lesser player, it just didn't work out. And, LeBron's not signed the contract extension. He indicated, if we can get the right guys in, I'll take a discount. Well, the right guys are gone. LeBron will probably say, just give me the max. I'll just play for 3 years and 162. I won't take less. It's a complicated story. And like I said, we're a day and a half into NBA free agency, and the marquee names are flying off the board. I don't know where the Lakers are going to go get more quality players. So big story there.
What about one of the Lopez brothers? I thought I saw a rumor about that online this morning.
Well, Brook Lopez is out there on the trade block, but is he a difference maker? Yeah, he's a big. Does he complement Anthony Davis? Yeah, maybe. I think he's a pretty good passer. I don't think he's the type of stud that they wanted. Tough call. They'll make calls. The question is, will Pelinka pay the right price to get the right guy? Huge question there. Now, from the Lakers, let's go to the Clippers. We thought this might happen. We talked about this happening, and it did happen. Paul George opted out of his contract with the Clippers, walked away as a free agent, said, no, I'm not going to stay. If he had opted in, they could turn around and make a trade. Instead, he opted out, and he went directly to the Philadelphia 76ers at 3:30 this morning. He reached agreement. That's a massive blow to the Clippers. Then you add into that equation, they elected at the last minute, after they got word that George was not going to negotiate with them, they decided to keep James Harden at $35 million per season. They signed James Harden 2 years, $70 million. Had a good season, totally tanked and disappeared in the playoffs, but they gave him 2 years, $70 million. On top of that, and this was strange, Russell Westbrook opted in to stay despite the fact he failed them in the postseason. But I hear that Westbrook opted in so they could make a trade, send him somewhere else. That deal has yet to happen. So the Lakers now are just not the same team. They turned around after Paul George went to Philadelphia at 3:30 on Monday morning. By 8 a.m., they signed young forward Derek Jones, the ex-Dallas Maverick. They signed a very controversial, productive, but troubled guard in Kevin Porter, who was out of the NBA last season on a domestic abuse case, did not play at all in pro basketball. They brought him back. But please tell me, you think Derek Jones and Kevin Porter are going to be the equal to what you had with Paul George? So that's a big, big problem for the LA Clippers. They're not the team they were. And I think the thing that's galling is they got Kawhi Leonard to take a reduced price, because he signed a 3-year deal last year at a much lower price to keep the team together. And Paul George stood there, and Paul George said, that is great that Kawhi's doing this. Let's keep this thing together. And then Paul George opts out and signs at 3:30 on Monday morning to go to Philadelphia. So they're kind of a team that's in tatters. It's not the same franchise at this point in time. And I don't think Russell Westbrook brings you very much on the trade block. So that's the storyline there. John, your reaction to what's happening to Steve Ballmer's Clippers? Always a problem with the Clippers, isn't it?
Always a problem. I mean, there's the curse of the Clippers, and it goes way back to when they were the Buffalo Braves, back in the 70s. One thing after another with this franchise. When Paul George came here, we were all feeling the good vibes. He's an LA guy, went to school in California. Him and Kawhi, they had that press conference together, and all of that just, went away. I mean, traded in the middle of the night. This is just show me the money, right?
Wasn't traded. He opted out. This was,
pardon me, yeah.
Show me the money in the middle of the night. 3:30 this morning is when I got a text that said he is leaving. I mean, that's a big, big blow to the LA Clippers. And he was a fine player. My goodness, he's had a really good career, but he's gone. He's gone to Philadelphia, which now has its own version of the big three. Now, let me just quickly run through what has happened in the first 30 hours of free agency for you, John, because some of these other guys' names have been mentioned as maybe coming to the Clippers or coming to LA. They're not coming either. George goes to Philadelphia, 4 years, $212 million. Chris Paul was released by Golden State. He has promptly signed, and I think this is a great acquisition, in San Antonio. Instead of making $30 million, he's going to make 1 year, $11 million, but he wants to play for Popovich. You talk about a glue guy to hold the team together. Orlando signed Denver guard Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 3 years, $66 million. Pope played really well for the former NBA champions. Philadelphia, in addition to getting Paul George, signed Andre Drummond, rebounding specialist to the Chicago Bulls. Detroit landed Tobias Harris, the shooting forward who left Philadelphia. His name had been mentioned coming to the Clippers. He's gone to the Detroit Pistons from Philadelphia. Oklahoma City this afternoon signed the fast-developing center of the New York Knicks, Isaiah Hartenstein, 3 years, $87 million. Knicks ran out of money because of all the transactions the Knicks had made in the last couple of weeks. They lose Hartenstein. He goes to Oklahoma City. And, of course, Dallas makes the trade. We don't know all the components yet because it's a three-way deal. Dallas gets the three-point shooter Klay Thompson, not the Lakers. Charlotte gets the young forward jumping jack Josh Green. Golden State gets cap relief because Klay Thompson is off the books. And at the same time, they're going to pick up, I think, multiple draft picks along the way. So those were marquee names that changed teams. And I said this first 18 to 32 hours in the NBA free agency has just been, your wording is correct, wheeling and dealing. It's been pretty amazing, John.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what to make of all these moves. I'm curious to know if any of these kids that were drafted, if they're going to make a big impact in year one when they're on their new roster.
Oh, I think the kids at the top of the draft board definitely are going to make impacts. And, the prime example is, you got young kids going to bad teams, so it takes time. But in some cases, you got young kids going to teams whose arrow is pointed up. I mean, Chris Paul joins Wembanyama in San Antonio. That's pretty impressive. And, Oklahoma City last year drafted Chet Holmgren, the kid from Gonzaga. Now they've gone out and they've added veteran people to put around him. So, it's one thing to draft the young player. The next thing is, do you have the right support people around the young player? And some of these clubs have wheeled and dealed. A couple of other sidebar notes. We, of course, came through the NBA draft last Wednesday and last Thursday. We talked about that. You don't get drafted, you sign as a free agent. Jaden Ledee goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's a pretty good situation, I think, for the ex-Aztec, John. And we had talked about go where you can play for a good coach, go where there's going to be an opportunity. It's weird. Jaden Ledee goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves as a street free agent. He replaces Jalen McDaniels, another ex-Aztec, who was shipped away on a draft night NBA trade. So Jaden Ledee goes to a really good team with a pretty good coach in Chris Finch. And Keyshawn Johnson, the ex-Aztec, who went to Arizona for 1 year, does not get drafted. He goes to Miami as a street free agent. He's going to get a chance to learn under Eric Spoelstra, smart guy, coach, really good teacher, and Pat Riley, a hell of a general manager, player personnel guy, and knows how to run systems. So for the Aztecs, I think in my heart, This worked out okay for Ledee. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get, but there is an opening because Minnesota got rid of Jalen McDaniels, and Keyshawn Johnson goes to play for two real bright light guys. John?
Well, I imagine both of those guys are going to end up on two-way deals, some kind of a G League thing. But it's interesting you brought up McDaniels because I often get him confused because there's a Jaden and a Jalen. And I think it was Jaden that went to the San Diego State, and Jalen, I think, went to the University of Washington, right?
Right. I believe so.
And so was it Jalen or Jaden that was in Minnesota that just got moved?
I believe it was Jalen.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Anyhow, Ledee gets an opportunity there for sure. I may have misspoken as to Jaden versus Jalen, but it was Jalen McDaniels that wound up got moved. Hey, we get to halftime. We hope you're enjoying our podcast on the road. I'm at my cottage in the northern Adirondacks in upstate New York near the Canadian border. John Riley is back in the studio. He's not at some bar in Belfast, Northern Ireland. We're trying to pull off this two-city, two-state, coast-to-coast podcast. And at halftime, our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you across San Diego. You got projects. They've got materials. You need help. You need ideas. You need direction. Do what we did. Go to DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. And our Monday bonus podcast is brought to you by North County Eye Centers of Poway and Escondido. We all need help with our eyes. You know, whether that's just a vision test, whether it's to get new glasses, whether it's to get prescription sunglasses, or whether possibly to be treated for something much more serious. And there are all types of eye issues out there, from cataracts to glaucoma to pink eye to dry eye. North County Eye Center, the place to go. And North County Eye Center right now is offering free eye tests and discounts on all frames when you call to set up an appointment and you tell them Hacksaw and us podcast talked about North County Eye Center. And before we start the second half of our Monday bonus podcast, just a couple of reminders. I'm looking to add people to my X team, aka Twitter. Want you to become a follower. Just follow me at Hacksaw1090. And if you like sports, go to my website and register to become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Just go to leehacksawhamilton.com. There's a big orange box. Fill it out so you can get on the email list of all the things we are offering. And John, when we're done telling the fans all these hot topics on the table, we're going to open it up for Fans Forum. Just explain to everybody on our live stream how that works.
Yeah, so if you got a question or comment for Lee, drop it in the live chat. We already got some guys online saying, show me your Adirondack, So if you got a question or comment for Lee in the world of sports, just drop it in the live chat, Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved.
Okay, on we go. We have covered all things baseball. You're an NBA fan, a Lakers fan, a Clippers fan. Feel free to jump into Fans Forum. Give us your response to the disappointing news about the Lakers and where the Clippers are going to go get players. So we've talked hoops. John, let's talk NFL because the notebook is full of information.
Yeah, a lot going on here, Lee, including that big lawsuit with the Sunday ticket.
I was stunned. I was surprised that the NFL lost the antitrust lawsuit. It was such a complex issue. I thought it was going to end in a hung jury, that it was so complicated, but it only took them 5 hours. That's absolutely stunning to me, as complex of all the discussion of contracts and promises and money, et cetera. It only took the jury 5 hours. The end story, and I asked a couple of sports legal people about this, One told me that he is of the opinion that Roger Goodell, who had never testified in a federal case, got on the stand and really screwed this thing up for the NFL when he talked about the operation of Sunday Ticket as compared to the operation of CBS and Fox and how it impacted the TV contracts. Another sports law guy told me, Lee, it was a paper trail, a smoking gun. Connect the dots, if you will. When they read a letter that an executive from Fox sent to the National Football League that said, we are not going to agree to the financial terms of a TV contract extension until we know or we have input as to what you're going to charge for the DirecTV Sunday Ticket program. We are not signing this deal until we know what the dollar value is. We're not going to give you the big dollar if you're going to allow listeners, viewers to walk away from us to subscribe to something that becomes a competitor. I was told that letter is the thing that killed the National Football League. And of course, the NFL, in its approach to things, said, we've always been pro-consumer. We've always been pro-fan. Well, it's always been about a money grab. And I think that steamed a lot of people. The damages, John, are unbelievable. It's $14.4 billion because it's an antitrust awards. $14.4 billion. How would you like to think if you're Spanos, the Chargers, if you're Kroenke, the Rams, because they have to pay their share of the settlement. Each team has to give up $449 million in income to pay their share of this antitrust settlement if the case is not won on appeals. That's the next thing is the National Football League lawyers will file, they will appeal it. It's going to take a while. It's not going to happen immediately. But all this is the bottom thing of the NFL announcing you want to buy DirecTV, you want to see Sunday Tickets, $449, which was radically higher than it was under the prior group under DirecTV. So they lose the lawsuit. We'll find out what happens on appeal, but this is stunning. Other topics on the table. He loves me not. We're talking about the 49ers. We're talking about Brandon Ayuk, star young wide receiver. San Francisco's got massive salary cap problems. Brandon Ayuk, who had refused to come to OTA workouts, no progress has been made at all in Ayuk's ability to get a contract extension. Finally met with John Lynch, the general manager, over the weekend, and they indicated that he will stay with the team, even though these contract talks are stalled. He's making $14 million in the final year of his contract. Ayuk wants everybody else is getting. He wants 25 to 30 million. He wants a jump in a new contract from 14 to 25 or 30 million. He was given a lesson in economics 101 by John Lynch because they got salary cap problems and they have to deal with a big money pay raise that's coming to their quarterback, Brock Purdy. Ayuk emerged from the weekend meeting saying, I will play, but I can't guarantee he's not going to be a distraction during the course of the season. There's another distraction developing down in Miami. Tua Tagovailoa's got 1 year to go on his contract. He's making $21 million. Miami offered him 40. He rejected it. He wants what everybody else is getting, north of 50 million. Miami says we're willing to pay him a fair and marketable going rate contract on the extension. They don't want to go higher than 40 million. So now we got the Tua contract that we got to deal with. New York Jets, he's back. He went to Greece. He went to Egypt. Aaron Rodgers is back. Took a lot of heat for missing the mandatory OTAs. This is the same quarterback that said the one thing we have to change with New York Jet football is we have to stop all these distractions. Well, Aaron Rodgers is back, and he's indicated he's going to work in the next couple of weeks with Jet receivers on his own after missing the mandatory minicamp. And how bad can it be for a quarterback that was a mess? Raiders. Remember the name Jamarcus Russell? He's been arrested in Alabama for stealing $74,000 from a high school boosters group. He was a fundraiser and a volunteer assistant coach at an Alabama high school, John, and he went out and raised $74,000. A booster businessman in Alabama gave it to him. He took it, cashed the money, spent $55,000 of the $74,000 it was supposed to go to a high school facility. He's been dismissed. He's been fired. He's been arrested. How low can your life and your career go? This was a high number one draft pick of the Raiders. So, John, that's what's going on in the NFL Notebook. Are you stunned with the outcome to the NFL lawsuit? And how's San Francisco going to solve all this problem they've got with the salary cap?
Well, I mean, as far as the Niners go, you got a lot of star players, and there's only so much money to go around. but I'm still shocked by the Sunday ticket thing. To me, antitrust, I mean, this is kind of a little beyond the scope of sports, but antitrust is really a lot of baloney. It's usually when they just target a big company to tear them down. And that's what the NFL is. They just got torn down. Companies are always making, pricing decisions based on competitive nature of themselves and their competitors and their suppliers. To me, this is nonsense. If you're an NFL owner, you've got to be furious having to come up with $500 million to pay this thing off.
Well, they've got the money. Thing is, it's no longer their money if they lose on appeal. And that's not going to happen in the next 15 minutes. That takes an extended period of time. What's your reaction to the Miami situation? Have we got another contract controversy brewing there with Tua?
Well, this reminds me a little bit about how the NFL was considering a quarterback cap where they could only have a certain percentage of the total pie. I mean, what is the NFL salary cap right now, Lee?
It's going to be, I think this coming season, I think it's going to be at like $228 million. It took a big bump. But the problem is the cap goes up, every position player's contract will probably take a percentage bump too. So they got a real issue on their hands now because all these quarterbacks are asking for 50 million plus. And that's what triggered the conversation that you and I talked about last week, John, is that the NFL says we're going to try to put a cap that a quarterback can only get a certain percentage of the cap as his contract. It might be 35%, it might be 40%. It has to be collectively bargained. So keep an eye on this story because this story is not going to go away. Okay, so we've covered all things football. Hockey Hotline is open. You're not going to believe what just happened. Today is the first day of NHL free agency, John.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, a lot going down. There's always a lot of hockey fans in Fans Forum. So what's the latest?
Yeah, the old Canada Network will probably be foaming at the mouth to talk about this. Today was day one of NFL free agency. 50 free agents have changed teams since 9 o'clock this morning when the free agent window opened up. Let me walk through this with you. I'll give you marquee names that hockey fan will identify with. First off, 57 goal scorer Sam Reinhart, last seen raising the Stanley Cup for the Florida Panthers. He just agreed today on an 8-year extension worth $69 million. He stays with the Florida Panthers. The next big story is what happened in Boston. They had a great season and they got knocked out of the playoffs, lickety-split. They spent a ton of money. They raided the Vancouver Canucks. They killed them. They took one of their top center icemen, Elias Lindholm. He signed a 7-year extension. They took their top defenseman, Nikita Zadorov, who was paired with Quinn Hughes, who's their elite all-star blue liner. Zadorov has gone to Boston, and they took Anaheim Ducks physical left winger, Max Jones. Boston has gotten firepower. They've kind of changed the whole persona of what was a pretty good team. Toronto, which was continued to be a disappointment. The Maple Leafs made the deal to get Chris Tanev of the Dallas Stars. They made a draft day trade to get his rights to negotiate. And the minute you heard they gave up a third-round pick to get the chance to negotiate with a veteran defenseman, and then the veteran defenseman signed a mega-year contract to go to the Maple Leafs, and then they followed that by stealing Oliver Ekman-Larsson of the Florida Panthers. He leaves the championship team so that Maple Leafs, as good as they are offensively, go into the marketplace and help themselves on the blue line. But maybe the best group of hours, this whole sucker opened at 9 o'clock this morning, belongs to Nashville. They signed 42 goal-scoring forward Jonathan Marchessault of Las Vegas. It's a stunner. The Golden Knights let him walk. They signed Brady Skelch, a forward from Carolina. They signed Steve Stamkos, future Hall of Famer, Tampa Bay Lightning, their captain, 555 career goals. All those guys are going to Nashville. Tampa Bay won the bidding war for Jake Wenzel, who got out of Carolina. He got a lot of offers from a lot of teams. He signed with the Tampa Bay Lightning. A couple of other names you'd recognize off the Hockey Hotline. Blackhawks, who I thought had a really good draft. They turn around and sign Tyler Bertuzzi, 20-goal scorer of the Maple Leafs, and Alec Martinez, a former defenseman, Las Vegas. Vancouver, riddled by defection, signs Jake DeBrusk, a 30-goal scoring winger from Boston. LA Kings sign Warren Fogle. He was the grinder, the left winger that played so well for the Edmonton Oilers. They also signed Joel Edmondson, a defenseman of the Toronto Maple Leafs. New Jersey signs Brett Pesky, defenseman from Carolina. Washington signs Matt Roy, workman-like defenseman, LA Kings. That's a big loss for LA. Seattle signs Brandon Montour, one of the first pair defensemen for the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Montour is an ex-San Diego Gull. He gets a monster payday. He goes to Seattle. And Edmonton signs Victor Arvidsson, kind of a utility man forward who can score goals. He comes from the Kings, and they're about to sign Jeff Skinner of the Buffalo Sabres, whose contract was bought out. Not only do we have 50 free agents sign in the first 3 hours of free agency, John, we also had 19 trades the day of the NHL draft. So the player movement is not over, but the player movement is absolutely amazing, and most of the big names are now off the boards. John?
So in that flurry of names and teams and everything you just shared, what's going on with the Coyotes? I mean, are they active right now, or are they just kind of biding time until they move?
Well, the franchise moved. The franchise is in Salt Lake City. It is called the, quote, Utah Hockey Club. And they've been active. They continue to draft well. They'd stockpile pits. I think they signed 1 or 2 second-tier free agents today. They've not traded anybody. That's a young team whose arrow is probably pointed up. It's just going to take them some time to get all their players in. But the response in Salt Lake City is unbelievable. I think we talked about it about a month ago. They have season ticket orders for 34,000 fans in an arena that's going to seat just 12,000. Now, that's not full season ticket orders. That could be half season ticket orders. It could be, Friday, Saturday, Sunday season ticket orders. But 34,000 want to be part of Utah Hockey Club going forward on year 1.
Yeah, good on them. I mean, I think the Coyotes are going to be in a better spot, or really they're not Coyotes. I think the Blizzard is the name they're going to get, right, Lee?
Well, they haven't chosen the final name. It's going to be called the Utah Hockey Club in year 1, and they're going to make a decision in the next 6 months. There will be another fans vote from people as to what the name is. They came up with, I think, 6 finalist names. I like Blizzard more than I like any of the others. I disliked some of the others that they came up. John, last topic on the table before we try to get the fans forum.
Yeah, let's go to the high-speed sports wire. There's a lot of breaking news here.
Yeah, let's just talk names in the news. This is a big story. I don't know how to describe what I'm about to say. I can tell you what I feel. I'm so saddened about this. Dick Vitale, the legendary voice of college basketball, ESPN, the one that crowned, all the great phrases in college basketball during this broadcast. He has fought a brutal fight with throat cancer. He beat it. Cancer has come back. Dick Vitale now needs immediate surgery for cancerous tumors in his neck. He's a great gentleman. He loves college basketball. He's been the point man for the cancer fundraiser, the Jimmy V Foundation, on behalf of his former friend Jim Valvano. And now people are rallying around Dick Vitale. I was trying to think of a word to describe Dick Vitale, and I'm going to plagiarize it. I'm going to take it from him, from his dictionary. He is an aircraft carrier of a guy. He's a hell of a man. So if you say prayers, pray for Dick Vitale, because he has had a tough run uphill, and now he's had another setback. He's going to have surgery for cancer of the neck. Bo Jackson, great running back. Bo Jackson, hell of a two-way baseball player. Bo Jackson wept over the weekend. He was inducted into the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame. Now, his career was shortchanged by a career-ending hip injury, but he spoke glowingly about this experience as a two-sport guy. I mean, he did it before Deion Sanders did it, and they both did it really, really well. But he wept at home plate and during the press conference. It was really interesting because he's a big, tough hombre. We follow auto racing. John Force finally released from the hospital. Horrific crash. National Hot Rod Association races a week and a half ago. Car exploded at the finish line doing 300 miles an hour, blew into flames, debris everywhere. He was in the driver's cockpit. He hit the outside wall, hit the inside wall. Car finally came to a stop. They got him out of the blaze. Did not get burned, but obviously the force of the crashes really caused some problems with his inner organs. He's going to survive. It was a hell of a thing. You want to see about the integrity of what auto racing is all about, the integrity of the cockpit of that drag racer, or the integrity of what NASCAR or IndyCar or Formula One cars have now become. We've not had any deaths since Dale Earnhardt Sr. died, 20 years ago. But Google John Force NHRA crash. You'll be amazed. Soccer, they're going to have to play the best games of their life. It's really been a roller coaster of a ride for Team USA. Tuesday, they play Uruguay, and it's a big challenge. They have to win to move on to the knockout round. They won their first game very impressively, got blown out of their second game. They lost Tim Weah, a midfielder who has been hit with a 2-game suspension for a red card for throwing a forearm to the back of the head of a player. So they're going to be down one man. And they're going to have to bounce back against Uruguay, which is a forceful, fast team. At this point in time, a lot of people wondering, Greg Berhalter the right guy? I still think he is, and I still think they could win this game against Uruguay, get to the knockout round. We'll see how they go. Not a good time at Team Mexico. We talked about this. I did not agree with the makeup of the Mexican roster. El Tri gets knocked out of group play, is not moving on. They left 5 veteran players, including their goalkeeper, Ochoa, off the Copa roster, and Mexico got beat. Mexico had not scored a goal in the last 2 games, scored only 1 goal in 3 games and lost. Guess who's going to the knockout round? With half of England criticizing their coach and Harry Kane sounding off in defense of everybody on the English side, the 3 Lions are going to the knockout round. They won their group. How impressive was that? Harry Kane's in grudge mode against the British media. But as he said last night, hey, back home on the island, we're still playing soccer. You're going to follow us and cheer for us next week. Harry Kane has been in grudge mode against the BBC and their criticism and coverage. And this was really cool. We have talked extensively about Caitlin Clark. We've talked extensively about how she's been treated, kind of targeted in the WNBA. Before the tip-off on Sunday of the Indiana Fever Phoenix Mercury game, Brittany Griner walked across the floor and hugged Caitlin Clark for an extended period of time. It was really kind of cool. And she continues to play better. The team is getting better, although they're obviously not a first-place roster. But that's the first time anybody in the WNBA in about 3 weeks has really shown any compassion to what Caitlin Clark has gone through personally and how they've mistreated her physically. But yet Caitlin Clark just keeps coming down the floor, making passes, taking threes, scoring points, and trying to get better defensively. But Brittany Griner made her own personal statement towards Caitlin Clark. That was cool. So, John, those are hot topics on the table. I'll invite you to respond from Coach Vitale to Bo Jackson all the way down to the WNBA.
Okay, just a couple of quick comments. Dick Vitale, obviously a great guy. I mean, he's the one that built all the excitement. I remember him in March Madness, I think in the 80s, when it was really cooking and he became much more on the national stage. So best wishes, good prayers for Dick Vitale. Love Bo Jackson. What a story. And good for the Royals for recognizing him. John Force is a name I'd never heard of. When I first saw his name written, I thought it might have been a typo, but no, he's legit. I went to drag races at the Fremont Speedway up in the Bay Area as a kid, and that was always something. There's people that are really into that sport, and what a tragic case for him. Team USA, yeah, that red card screwed them. They have to beat Uruguay. That's a tough assignment. But the Caitlin Clark thing, I love that story because it's nice to see a public display of affection for him, especially someone like Brittany Griner. But I saw Caitlin Clark being interviewed and they asked her, are you getting advice from any of the other WNBA players? And she said, no. So it seems like they're still shunning her to a great degree.
I concur with you. It's almost like she's been isolated on an island by herself because of who she is, the persona, what her reputation was a player. But at the end of the day, she's had such a positive impact on the WNBA. All right, it's time for Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 store locations to serve you across San Diego. You've got projects, they've got materials. You need ideas, consult with them. DIXIELINE Lumber. And we're all going to need help with our eyes. And here's an invitation to get a free vision test right now from North County Eye Center. Just call, set up the appointment, tell the Hacksaw and the podcast sent you in. North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. Work with them because we're all going to need help with our eyes. John, it's time for Fans Forum. I'd say there's probably a few people got opinions about the resiliency of the Padres, what the Dodgers should do, what we've just seen from the Angels, what's happened to the Lakers and the Clippers, what's happened in the NHL Draft. time for these people to pick the topic and get involved in Fans Forum. What do you got for me?
Okay, let's go here to 4RXLA, which, by the way, reminds me of the Jim Rome's guys. Didn't they have like a car they called the 4RXLA, something like that? Well, anyways, he says, all the Padres have to do is get a wild card spot because the Dodgers are showing no indication that they are not going to get knocked out in the first round again.
Well, you got the Padres, who obviously have to go a further distance without Yu Darvish, and a greater distance without Joe Musgrove, and have to be concerned about what's the time window on Fernando Tatis. But I was so impressed with how they just stepped up and battered Boston Red Sox pitching. Now, maybe they got a break in the schedule. They got the rookie part of the Bo Sox rotation. But at the end of the day, they produced. At the end of the day, they've shown some real resiliency. Now, they just need to continue to do this and trample Texas, which is next on the schedule. And they got their own set of problems going forward there. So at this point in time, Padres, are they for real? We're going to find out if they can put together this winning streak as they come back home. And the Dodgers, this whole thing could change with one phone call. Is Andrew Friedman going to make this phone call? Dodgers still have a significant lead over the Padres. They're still running uphill, the Padres are. Dodgers still have games in hand on San Diego. But the Dodgers have also got this whole time window issue that the Kershaw setback, the Buehler setback, the loss of Mookie Betts. But the Dodgers do have resources and are just not afraid to take on more payroll. So this will be fascinating going forward. John, what do you think?
I am so impressed with the Padres, the way that they're hitting the ball all over the field. I mean, Cronenworth going the other way, Jackson Merrill putting up 2 or 3 hits a game. These guys are actually great bat-on-ball skills. And then Machado has had a great month in June. I mean, he was hitting bombs. His batting average is up. I mean, are we going to see the resurgence, Manny Machado, to kind of carry this team over the summer?
I think it's well said, and he's playing. I mean, he's playing through the injuries, but the fact that the power is now returned must mean that the elbow problem has gone away. Now, can they keep him healthy with the hip issue, run on the base paths? Because there's some times where he hasn't looked right, rounding the bases, and other times he's taken violent swings and he kind of buckled in the batter's box. But so far, he's really bounced back. John, next question.
Okay, let's go here to Callan. And he says, holy cow, Lee, what a start to the NHL free agency today. So many big names are finding new homes. Thoughts on how Anaheim and Los Angeles drafted?
Well, let me give you just an over-the-top response and see if I can find all my notes that I made about the NHL draft. The LA Kings have really loaded their roster with veteran players, and obviously ridding themselves of Pierre-Luc Dubois is huge. Then you just turn around on the situation, getting Darcy Kemper back. I don't know if he's the solution. I still think they're not all-star quality between the pipes, but they do have goal scorers, and that becomes a big issue. In terms of the Ducks, I was absolutely stunned what happened at the draft. Everybody was of the opinion they were going to take one of the Russian defensemen that were top of the draft board, and they didn't. And it just absolutely shocked everybody. And it shocked the kid they took, Brandon Seneca, big right winger from Oshawa, Ontario, because everybody thought they were going to take Silyev, the 6'7" Russian defenseman. They bypassed on him. They thought that they might take Caden Lindstrom, a center iceman who could score from Medicine Hat in the West. They bypassed on him. And Sam Dickinson, a high-scoring defenseman, big guy, from the London Knights who played in the Memorial Cup. Everybody thought it was going to be one of those guys, and instead they took Seneca from Oshawa. And I was stunned. And I don't know if you saw the video. You ought to Google it. When he got chosen, he stood up and his jaw dropped. And they showed his parents standing next to him. They stood up, and they couldn't believe their eyes were wide open that their son was taken third. I went digging and talked to some people while I was on the road, and they said, this kid's a grinder. This kid's a tough guy. This kid's a sniper. This guy's not afraid to go to the net and be where all the traffic is and do all the dirty work. So they got themselves a young player. He's not ready to be in the National Hockey League. I don't think he's ready to play for the San Diego Gulls at age 18. But they got a guy who they don't have, that kind of type of guy to go with all the Trevor Zegras skill guys that they've got on the rest of the roster. So it's a good choice. It's a stunning choice. Go look up the video. You'll laugh. It's so funny. The kid was speechless that he got chosen third. At the end of the day, The Ducks are still really young, and the Ducks have not done anything in free agency today. The Kings are obviously changing their chemistry as we go away. Good questions, Callum. Hope you enjoy our hockey coverage. John?
Yeah. I mean, I was wondering that too, Lee, because you had said previously they had too many kids and not enough veterans. I mean, but they picked up some free agents, right, in Anaheim?
Not yet. And
Not
which
yet.
is kind of hard to believe because they did have a fair amount of salary cap money. Now, there could still be a trade coming. John Gibson's name still continues to swirl out there. He was the veteran goaltender, but he's earning a significant amount of money, and that becomes a big issue as to whether or not that Anaheim would have to pay a piece of the $6 million per year. He's got 3 more years left on his contract, and clubs are saying, well, we'll take Gibson, maybe we'll give you a veteran, but you got to pick up, $2 million or $3 million every year of the $6 million or so. And the Ducks said no. At this point, he's a backup goaltender with almost $19 million left on his contract. Maybe they'll find a buyer, but there have been an awful lot of trades. I had thought the night before the draft that the Red Wings were about to make a move, and maybe it was John Gibson, but then Detroit went a different direction. In fact, Detroit signed Cam Talbot, the former starting goaltender with the LA Kings. So the Ducks have still got cap space, but the Ducks still have John Gibson, and the Ducks are still, to me, way, way too young. I understand blueprint, but how long is this rebuild going to go on? When are they going to put a quality product on the ice and start to win for the fans? John, next question.
Okay, next question. Let's go to Joey. He says, what do the Lakers pivot to? Because they have a plan B.
Well, the plan B was LeBron's going to take a pay cut. Plan B is we're going to go get a player that complements everything we want to run with J.J. Redick's new offense. Plan C was, oh my God, the guys we wanted are gone. We did not get DeJounte Murray, and now Klay Thompson's gone to the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference. I'm not sure what the next thing is. There still will be guys out there. There's another guy out there that might have to be traded because the Knickerbockers are going to have luxury tax problems. Talking about Julius Randle, but he was here before. There's got to be a second tier of veteran players out there that they might look at, but they don't have a lot of space. I think they have only one mid-level exemption, which is $12.9 million they can use to go get a veteran player. Now, maybe you create space by trading somebody else, but all these other guys have opted in to stay. So you can't, because they opted in, I don't believe you're going to be able to find much value out there for D'Angelo Russell. And yeah, everybody wants Austin Reeves, but they don't want to trade Austin Reeves. So and right now, what the next plan is remains to be seen, because their ideas, which I thought carried great validity, short-term rental for Klay Thompson, or possibly the other acquisitions, they made sense. And those guys are now gone off the board. John?
Wow. I mean, let's go to Chris here, because Chris has another Lakers comment. He says, do not stress. The Lakers not making a trade or signing a huge free agent. They didn't have to. They have Bronny James, who will shoulder a huge part of the scoring load this season, and he won't count against the cap much at all. Rob and Jeannie not getting enough credit, period.
Well, that's nice for a Laker fan. He's like you. He's speaking from his heart, but he's not really using his head. Please understand, Bronny James only averaged 4 points per game at USC and could not hold on to a starting job. He's so young. Had this kid stayed at USC next season with Musselman coming as a new coach who would have taught him, he might have made himself a first-round draft pick and maybe be a more complete player. They really drafted Bronny James for what they can build him in 2 years from now. That's the big issue. It's just going to take that time. And that's with your fingers crossed that he has no physical setbacks with the cardiac issue. Did he get drafted because he's LeBron's kid? Probably, to a small degree. He got drafted, though, because of this potential to grow upside. But that's not going to happen on open night this season, despite your taking part in Fans Forum with your heart rather than your head. Good prospect, but that's what he is right now. Suspect is a prospect until he become a proven product. John, agree or disagree?
I think it's got to be all about LeBron's kid. I mean, otherwise, why would you take a kid that played only 1 year in college, didn't play that well, has some serious health concerns? I mean, have we heard any updates on the health issues with Bronny?
He passed all the physicals. He passed the NBA physical at the combine. He's passed the private physicals that he went through with it. I was told that he worked out for 4 teams. The agents dropping hints. He only practiced for 2, which makes no sense to me. But the reviews we got when he was at the draft camp were very positive in terms of explosiveness and ability to play defensive play. But those are against other rookies. That's not necessarily against a proven veteran in the NBA Western Conference. So it'll be a storyline to pay attention to see the growth factor, how much he grows going forward. But I think from a chemistry standpoint, unless Redick walks in there with the magic wand and he casts that wand and these guys buy into his system and these guys do defensively what they want done, yeah, I'm not sure it's a better roster now than it was prior to the hiring of JJ Redick. His playbook has brought excitement to people, and he's gotten positive reviews from a lot of people. But at this point in time, until you've done it in live game action when the regular season starts, it's just too early to judge anything. And the only known commodity right now is just they're not been able to add anybody yet, aside from the new head coach. John?
Lee, what's going on in the background where you are? There's like kids playing in the water, and I mean, it's all good summertime fun there.
Yeah, my cottage is right here on the lake in the northern Adirondacks, and we got kids playing. What's a bean toss, bean bag thing? The thing that you injured your rotator cuff doing? Yeah, that's what's going on outside. It's not somebody chopping wood. Sorry for the ambiance, but hey, dude, I'm on vacation and I'm still working here doing the podcast. Shut the bleep up. Next question, John.
You're the hardest working man in sports. All right, let's go to social media, and let's go here to Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. He says, I think the question, this is about the Chargers. I think the question is, does Jim want 100 catch receiver? Does Jim want 1,900 all-purpose yards from one man? Nope. He wants W's. This is definitely going to be a Raiders 70 types offense. Run, run, bomb, run, run, bomb.
I buy a piece of that equation. That's the vision going forward. But let us be realistic here. You got to prove you can do it. Let us be realistic. Their right tackle is a former left tackle who has not been a strong pass blocker, run blocker. He's a really good athlete. He's got phenomenal size. They're going to build him into being a good player. They don't have a healthy running back situation. Yes, the guys they got from Baltimore, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, have had spurts where they've played well, but they both had knee injuries. So they don't have a healthy Austin Eckler who had 1,800 all-purpose yards. That's going to be an issue. And there's no 100-yard reception guys there from the mixed bag. I like Josh Palmer. I think there's really good upside there. Quentin Johnston is work in progress. They have to teach him the mechanics of running the routes, catching the ball, and not dropping passes, because that was still a problem last year as a rookie with the Bolts, like the problem they had at TCU. And they don't have a legitimate big-time tight end that's going to go down the field. There's no George Kittle, if you will. Now, the Hayden Hurst, who used to be in Baltimore, was in Carolina, but had health issues with an head injury. He can catch passes, but I don't think he's going to catch 50 to 75 receptions. And the question with him, he gets blasted, he gets hurt. Does he have another head injury, another setback? So there's questions. I do understand the blueprint. Harbaugh, power football. Harbaugh, we will throw it with Justin Herbert. Harbaugh wants to play tough guy defense, but I don't know that they got tough guys on defense while they're still trying to answer the questions in offense. This is work in progress. And once we get to training camps in mid-July, we're going to talk extensively more about the NFL. You believe in Harbaugh? A lot of people believe in Harbaugh. But until you've done it, it takes time to do this. You got to prove it. Stop laughing, John. What's your response?
Well, it's interesting to compare him to the 1970s Raiders because, yeah, they had a lot of talent on those teams, and it wasn't just one guy. I mean, they had, was it Cliff Branch and Fred Biletnikoff and Dave Casper?
Mark Van Egan and all those tough guys in the defensive secondary. You see any of that on the Chargers roster right now?
Well, not really, but I mean, it's fun to compare them against the Raiders in the 70s. If that's what we get, I'm going to be overjoyed, but let's see what happens. Let's go to another social media comment also about the Chargers. This one's from Carter Atkins and says, Lee, you were down on Marty Ball too back in the day. Geez, let them get in the kitchen and cook before you start judging. Harbaugh will turn this around. I want to talk sports with you, Lee.
Hey, Carter, let's be realistic here. I was not down on Marty Ball. I was concerned that Drew Brees might not be the right guy because he was so undersized. And, of course, he played hard. His heart was in it, and he got badly hurt, and he left. Phillip Rivers became a superstar. Phillip Rivers might be considered to be a future Hall of Famer, and they built that thing, and they were really good. And Tomlinson became a megastar, and Gates was Gates, and we know what that was all about. And then Phillip And they had good seasons, had really good seasons. And Marty had great seasons too. But Marty's playoff phobia always resurfaced. There was no surprise in any playoff game that a Schottenheimer team played. It was the same stuff that they ran during the season, and that's why his record as a playoff head coach was just absolutely miserable. That being said, Marty Ball won 200 games. I think Marty should get some consideration posthumously as being a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We know Harbaugh. We know what he did at Stanford in a really tough situation. We know, obviously, what he accomplished with the 49ers and what he did to rebuild Michigan. This is going to take some time. Now, the people running the streets in San Diego or those limited number of Charger fans in LA, I mean, if you're trying to tell me these dudes are going to go 13-4, I don't think so until they prove themselves. But let's see. I thought they had a really good draft. I think they had one of the better drafts in the league. But until you've done it, Joe Alt, until you've done it, Ladd McConkey, until you've done it in that linebacking group, just going to have to see how quickly this all comes together. I mean, that's my spin. John, you got a different take. Go ahead. Speak from your heart. Speak from your head. You're out in left field.
Well, I think, the Marty Ball era of the Chargers has to go down as one of the most talented teams to never make a Super Bowl. I mean, you got LT, you got Antonio Gates, you got Phillip Rivers, you've got a lot of great talent, and yet they blew it. Again, Marty Schottenheimer, Marty Ball, just doesn't work in the playoffs. That's your take, Lee?
Well, Marty never did anything dynamic in the postseason offensively. When you get to postseason play, you spring something on somebody that you never ever saw before. And Marty acted the way in Kansas City, the way the Chiefs were during the regular season, where they won a lot of games, and postseason they got knocked out. Did the exact same thing with the Chargers. That to me, unfortunately, is the black mark of his career. His postseason record in playoff games was miserable. It was, I want to say, it was 5-9, maybe 5-10. Now, what happened in the AFC Championship game was Tomlinson got hurt. Rivers got hurt. Phillip had knee scope surgery, yet stayed on the field and tried to play, but Tomlinson couldn't play. And at the end of the day, with two of their components of that great offense playing against Belichick's great defense and Tom Brady, they could not win. Big picture, Marty did a hell of a job in San Diego. I thought A.J. Smith did a good job, and then wound up in a divorce case, which was absolutely brutal as a team got old. But, I was fortunate because as voice of the Chargers, we did have a team that came together under Bobby Ross, and we did get to the Super Bowl, even though we were blown out by the 49ers. So it was just a segment in which they underachieved. It was a big, big blow for the Bulls. Are they going to be a Super Bowl team 3 years from now, 2 years from now? Got to stay free of injury. And we'll just have to see how quickly these components come together that Harbaugh and that new general manager drafted. That's going to be fascinating. I mean, I love the opening of NFL training camps the end of July and the start of preseason games because everybody starts on the same page at 0-0, and then we'll debate and talk about where they're strong, where they're weak, where they hit the jackpot, where they failed. So it's going to be fascinating going forward. John?
I expect Harbaugh is going to be a big improvement over the previous coach, Staley. So let's see how this thing all plays out. Let's jump over here. We got some Padres comments on social media, and this one is from Poor Men Guitars. He says, talking about will a change work for the Padres? And it says, wrong, Hacksaw. Baseball is all about momentum at the end of the season. You should know that since you've been reporting on it since the Civil War. Preller is looking like a genius with Profar, Higashioka, and others, as well as a stocked minor league system. Injuries don't seem to be a problem. You're going to be on the bandwagon when we run the Dodgers out of town during the playoffs?
Well, Mr. Guitar, let me just respond this way. You're correct by the assessment. How hot are you? Are you healthy when you get to October? That's a critical piece of the equation. But it's an awful lot of mileage, a lot of games the Padres still have to make up against the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers are reeling. John and I last week talked about the question of the Dodgers on the brink of toppling because they just continue to stockpile all the injuries. The difference is AJ does not have much left in the farm system that he can trade, and ownership has told him you're not taking on salary and you're not trading what few marquee guys you have left. He's already traded 5 of the top 10 this season. The Dodgers just have a plethora of young guys. The Dodgers are unafraid about taking on payroll because they're going to draw 4 million fans per season. So they're operating a little bit different playbook than AJ Preller is right now. My biggest concern for the Padres to be in the playoffs in a best-of-3 series, geez, you'd feel much better about your team if there was a healthy Darvish, if Musgrove became Musgrove back, rather than have to rely on Dylan Cease and Michael King and then Matt Waldron's knuckleball. If they don't get those two frontline veteran starters back, they may have a problem, even if they get to the wild card. But trade deadline's coming. We'll see what August 1st brings us. I think it's just going to be hard for AJ to make another significant acquisition. He's really done a unique job finding the right guys so far. John?
Yeah, I like what he's doing. I mean, in fact, Waldron has been magical this year. I mean, he had a little bit of a setback in Boston, but it wasn't that bad. You think a lot of the pressure, was getting to him, with Tim Wakefield there in Boston?
No, I just, the knuckleball didn't dance that night, and he got beat. That's okay. He had given him 8 quality starts in a row. Let's see what the next start brings. Next start, obviously, I think is probably going to be at home, or it might be in Texas, where Charlie Huff mastered the knuckleball in the heat and humidity. But, this Padre team of recent times has shown an awful lot of resiliency. It gnaws at you when you think about the gruesome losses, losing that series to the Angels, losing that series to the Rockies. How the hell do you lose to the Marlins? I think, Machado said at the point when everybody was emotionally in the dumper that this stuff's going to come back to haunt us. I hope it doesn't, but they need a hot streak. If they just can continue this hot streak before they go back out on the road, because like I said before, when they go on the road, they play the Orioles, who hit the hell out of the ball, and they're playing the Cleveland Guardians, one of the top teams in the American League, and then they're going to get the Dodgers back here in a showdown series. So they just need to keep this thing rolling and see if they can close the gap a little bit on Dodger baseball.
Well, it sounds like Bogarts is getting close to coming back. I mean, he's been taking some swings.
That's true, but we have to see. We're talking violent force swings, every swing at home plate in the regular season. What's going to happen when he dives for a ball? How's that shoulder going to hold up? And which Bogarts are we going to get back? The one that was a lifetime 280 hitter? Well, the guy's hitting 219 when he got hurt. Still some questions and answers about him, and we don't know when the next Tatis sighting is going to be. Most everybody of the opinion, this could be a 2 to 3 month thing. This could be into the month of August just because of the stress fracture in the thigh bone. Hey, John, this has been absolute fun as we broadcast this thing from my cottage in the Northern Adirondacks in upstate New York. It worked. You prayed. I kept my fingers crossed. This thing did not crash, because I'll tell you, connectivity out here is kind of tough, because the only things we have are a few vacationers on the lakes with their boats and a lot of deer running across the front of people's front yards. But this has been fun. Our podcast today, Monday bonus podcast, brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you in San Diego, and by North County Eye Center, with a reminder: a free eye exam awaits you, regardless of where you live in San Diego. Give them a call. Tell them Hacksaw sent you. North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. John, we'll be back Thursday. Even though it might be a holiday, we're going to do a podcast. We got a lot more topics on the table then. Have yourself a great afternoon. Thanks for keeping the wires strung together and not letting this sucker crash on our Monday bonus podcast.
Right on, Lee. So you enjoy your time out there on the lake. I want an update on July 4th when we get back together.
We'll be back on Thursday, hopefully starting right at 1 p.m. on the holiday. Thanks for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.